Welcome to Reinventing Parking, the podcast about parking policy for anyone who wants a better city and better urban transport. Welcome again to Reinventing Parking. This is a brief episode to share a quick announcement about a new partnership for the podcast, why it is important, and how you can help. I'm the host and creator of Reinventing Parking, Paul Barter. And here's the crux of the announcement. The Parking Reform Network and I have decided to partner, and as a result, I'm very happy to say that Reinventing Parking is now the official podcast of the Parking Reform Network. We hope this will help both entities to serve you and your fellow parking changemakers even better, and to foster and encourage more parking change-making everywhere. Regular listeners may already be familiar with the Parking Reform Network, but if it is new to you, I'll say more about it near the end. Our first endeavour together is a joint fundraising effort, and we could really use your help, and you could win a prize. So please keep listening for more details. Or visit parkingreform.org/blog to find out more. That's parkingreform.org/blog. PRN and I plan to cooperate in various ways to make the podcast better and to help the Parking Reform Network expand its reach and effectiveness. Our missions are already nicely aligned, so this won't change the focus of the podcast. Everyone who already enjoys Reinventing Parking and finds it useful should not be disappointed. The podcast will continue to cover the whole world and cover encouraging stories and cases about parking reform. Back to the fundraiser. Please do donate if you can, and please also help spread the word about the fundraiser. Donations to the fundraiser can also be applied towards Parking Reform Network membership or renewal, and members from all over the world are welcome. We hope to raise $6,000, which would enable a year's worth of monthly Reinventing Parking podcast episodes, or at least really help us to do so. To sweeten the deal, we've got a growing list of relevant books, all of them signed by their authors. So every $10 worth of donations enters the donor into a raffle to win one of the books. So far, the books on offer are these: Parking and the City, signed by editor Donald Shoup, who's been an inspiration to many of us and be very familiar to many of my listeners. New Mobilities, the great new book by former podcast guest Todd Littman. The Quirky World of Parking, signed by author Larry Cohen. Arbitrary Lines, How Zoning Broke the American City and How to Fix It, by M. Nolan Gray, and that book is coming out in June 2022. And finally, 3 books by Richard Wilson are also on offer. If you're a raffle winner, you can choose any one of these 3 parking-related books: Parking Reform Made Easy, Reflective Planning Practice, or Parking Management for Smart Growth. Before I end this episode, I promised a little more information about the Parking Reform Network in case you're not familiar. A theme in many Reinventing Parking episodes is that parking policy improvements typically happen only after a concerted effort by people who understand and care about the harm that conventional parking approaches do. Sometimes this push comes from insiders who change policies from within governments. But in many cases, such as Mexico City, Portland, and Auckland, all of which we featured on Reinventing Parking episodes, it's coalitions of people and organisations, both outside and inside government, that made the difference. Typically, we see that a small group of people does their homework on parking and then catalyses the campaign by showing how parking is relevant to the goals of other people who are focused on issues such as road safety, public transport, walkability, safe bicycle use, placemaking, housing, urbanism, air pollution, climate change, and many other issues. The Parking Reform Network is a non-profit organisation dedicated to encouraging that kind of effort. Its goal is to support networks of parking reformers, and it educates about the impact of parking policy on all of those other issues that many people care about. So personally, I find that Parking Reform Network is a great resource. PRN's online library of resources is great, and its Slack gives access to insights and advice from a host of other parking reformers. I find it really useful to be able to discuss and ask questions. I'm sure you will too. The Parking Reform Network recently released on its website an updated map, a map that was initiated originally by the Strong Towns movement, and Parking Reform Network has taken on the baton and updated that map. It's a map of cities that have eliminated parking mandates around North America. And actually, we would welcome contributions from other regions around the world too. Maybe you can help. And volunteers are working on other forthcoming resources from the Parking Reform Network as well. Parking Reform Network started in Oregon in the United States, but is keen to foster networking on parking reform around the world. I'm helping with that, especially through this podcast. So please do get in touch if you want to help too. If you donate to this fundraiser, please also join the Parking Reform Network. You'll be supporting parking reform efforts, and you'll be able to connect with parking reformers in your community. If there isn't a parking reform organisation where you live, Parking Reform Network might be able to help you start one. So visit parkingreform.org/blog, where you'll find more information about the fundraiser and a link to the fundraiser itself, where you can both donate and join the network. Please also share the word and encourage others to donate and to support the podcast and the Parking Reform Network. So that's all for now. Look out for regular episodes of Reinventing Parking in 2022. All the best. You've been listening to the Reinventing Parking podcast, and I'm Paul Barter. You can find out more at reinventingparking.org, where you'll find ideas and tips on parking policy. You can also listen to other episodes, subscribe, or leave a comment. That's reinventingparking.org. Bye for now.